The rain was falling so hard that night, it sounded like thousands of tiny stones hitting the streets of Chicago. Most people were rushing home, hiding under umbrellas, or sitting inside warm restaurants with family and friends. But Daniel was still working. At 23 years old, Daniel worked double shifts at a small roadside diner near the highway. The neon sign outside flickered constantly, and the old coffee machine made strange noises every few minutes. It wasn't glamorous, but Daniel needed every dollar he could earn. His mother was sick. Every week, most of his paycheck disappeared into hospital bills, medicine, and rent for their tiny apartment. Some nights, Daniel skipped meals just so his mother could eat properly. Still, he never complained. "Life doesn't stay hard forever," his mother always told him. Daniel wanted to believe that. That night, the diner was almost empty. Only 2 truck drivers sat quietly in the corner, drinking coffee while an old country song played softly from the radio. Daniel wiped down the counter and looked outside. That's when he saw him. An elderly man stood alone in the pouring rain near the bus stop across the street. His clothes were soaked completely, and he was struggling to hold a small suitcase while the wind pushed against him. Cars passed by without stopping. Nobody cared. Daniel looked at the clock. His shift was almost over. Technically, it wasn't his problem, but something inside him wouldn't let him ignore the man. He quickly grabbed an umbrella and ran outside. "Sir!" Daniel shouted over the storm. "You okay?" The old man looked exhausted. "I missed the last bus," he said weakly. "And my phone died." Daniel noticed the man's hands trembling from the cold. Without thinking twice, Daniel smiled and said, "Come inside before you freeze." The old man hesitated. "I don't have money for food." "That's all right," Daniel replied. "Tonight's on me." Inside the diner, Daniel brought him hot coffee, soup, and the only dry towel he could find. The old man ate slowly, like someone who hadn't had a warm meal in days. For almost an hour they talked. The man said his name was Mr. Bennett. He didn't say much about himself, only that he had traveled a long way for important business. Meanwhile, Daniel shared pieces of his own life. His sick mother, his financial struggles, his dream of one day opening his own restaurant. Most people would have hidden their problems out of embarrassment. But Daniel spoke honestly. Before leaving, Mr. Bennett asked quietly, "Why would you help a complete stranger when you barely have enough yourself?" Daniel shrugged softly. "Because I know what it feels like when nobody helps." The old man stared at him for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile. When the rain finally slowed down, Daniel used his last $20 to pay for a taxi so the man could reach a nearby hotel safely. "Thank you," Mr. Bennett said before getting into the cab. Daniel waved goodbye and walked home through the cold streets, unaware that his life was about to change forever. The next morning, Daniel arrived at work exhausted. But something felt strange immediately. The diner owner, Mr. Lewis, was standing near the entrance looking nervous. "Daniel," he whispered urgently, "there's someone here asking for you." Daniel looked toward the back booth and froze. Mr. Bennett sat there wearing a clean black suit, surrounded by 2 professionally dressed men. The old traveler from last night looked completely different. Daniel walked over carefully. "Sir?" Mr. Bennett smiled warmly. "I wanted to thank you properly." Before Daniel could respond, one of the men placed a folder on the table. Daniel opened it slowly. His eyes widened. Inside were documents showing a bank transfer, medical payment receipts, and something even more unbelievable: a business investment proposal. "I own several restaurants across the country," Mr. Bennett explained calmly. "Last night I was traveling without my assistance because I wanted to see how people treat strangers when nobody is watching." Daniel stood speechless. "Most ignored me," the old man continued. "Some were rude. But you gave away your last dollars to help someone you thought could offer nothing in return." Daniel's hands trembled. Mr. Bennett leaned forward. "Your mother's medical bills are fully paid, and if you still dream of owning a restaurant someday, I'd like to help make that happen." Daniel felt tears fill his eyes instantly. All the stress, all the sleepless nights, all the moments he nearly gave up. Suddenly they didn't feel meaningless anymore. "You changed my life," Daniel whispered. Mr. Bennett shook his head gently. "No, Daniel. Your kindness changed your life." Months later, Daniel's mother recovered steadily, and 1 year after that rainy night, a new family restaurant opened downtown. Above the entrance was a simple sign: "Kindness costs nothing." And every single customer who walked through those doors heard the same story. The story of one poor waiter who chose compassion when the world chose indifference. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can become the moment that changes everything.